Now we'll look at what the National CAD standard says about sheet size and about organizing our title blocks. Now, in the old days, people who did mechanical drawings tended to do sizes that were multiples of 8.5 by 11. And people who did architectural work did sizes that were multiples of 9 by 12. So what that means is, let's say you're doing multiples of 8.5 by 11. If you take two sheets of printer paper, each 8.5 by 11, and you put them side to side, one little sheet of paper is called an A size, by the way. You put them side by side, you wind up with 11 by 17. That's what we call a B size. If you put those together, you wind up with what's called a C size, 17 by 23. If you put several of those together, you wind up with what's called a D size, 34 by 26. 34 by 23. Now, in architectural drawings, those pages are a little bit bigger, and so your D size sheet, for example, would be 24 by 36 instead of 23 by 34. Well, what offices wind up doing is all offices nowadays have printers that spit out pieces of paper, and many printers will do B size, 11 by 17. So whether you're in a mechanical or an architectural office, you're probably going to have multiples of 8.5 by 11 for B size stuff. But then if you're doing large plotted drawings on a plotter with C and D and even bigger, you are probably going to stick with the multiples of 9 by 12 so that a D size sheet is 24 by 36. Not that it makes a huge amount of difference. You just need to know what size paper your printer or your plotter is using. And basically, architectural drawings, when they're big, are 24 by 36. When they're small, they're probably B size, 11 by 17. And those are the sizes we'll do in this class. Here's a table from the National CAD standard. You almost never see A-size sheets in an architectural set, so I'm going to skip over this one. When you put a title block on your architectural sheet, it must be vertically along the right margin of the sheet, and it has to cover the entire right edge of the sheet. And the reason for that is so that when you roll up a set of drawings, this block here that has all the information in it will always be visible. And we do it this way whether we're doing B size sheets or C or D size sheets. Then this title block along the right edge is subdivided into these blocks. And they always go in the same order. There's no requirement for size, so one office will make them one size and another office will make them another size, and you'll see a lot of variation. But what you do have to follow is keeping them in the same order. And then oftentimes you'll see some notes here along the edge. Now let's go through these blocks one by one. Let me back up just a bit. So I'm going to look at this strip of title block stuff here on the right edge of the paper, starting with this chunk that is at the top of that title block. And these lines here are showing us that they are enlarging this chunk in order to show us what is in that chunk. So at the top of the title block is the information from the designer of the project. This will be the company you work for, and it could be an architectural firm, it could be an engineering firm, could be a drafting firm. The company name and probably address will be up here. Then there's an empty space. You don't draw circles, actually, you just leave an empty block, and that is for the stamp of the licensed architect or the licensed engineer who approves your drawing. And with commercial drawings, all commercial drawings have to be stamped with an architect or an engineer. Below that block comes the project. What is it you are drawing? So if we were working on the remodel of Building 15 on the LCC campus, we would write all that stuff in here, LCC Building 15, probably the address of the campus. This block, when things were issued, you might or might not be using this block. If you're in a big project where you have a bid process and then a formal contracting process, this part might be more important. For a smaller project, you might not use this block. But you will use this block, the management block. This is where you write your name, drawn by, there, that's you. Possibly the date. Possibly if you had a checker checking your work, the checker would go there, and so forth. And probably your office is doing some project numbers and some file management stuff, and so the project number will go there. The next to the bottom block is the title of the sheet, and this just describes what is it. Is it a floor plan? Is it a section? Is it an elevation? Is this a detail sheet? It's fairly simple and straightforward in name. And finally, at the very bottom is the sheet number, and we'll talk about that, how we do the numbering, in the next lecture. This A means this is an architectural drawing, and it's sheet 101 of the set. I recommend that you do this thing of saying which sheet this is out of how many sheets in the set, for the reason that when you get out on the job site on a project and you have people working with sheets, or maybe you work for a subcontractor and you're doing bidding. In any event, your drawing set might have a lot of sheets, and you want to be very sure you have all the drawings, you're not missing any. Well, if you have this down here, this is sheet 1 of 20, let's say, you can look and see, do you have 20 sheets or are you missing one? And that ensures that nothing gets missed. Really important in bidding. All right, now, as we said, you're going to have this block of information. You're going to have this block of information along the right edge of the sheet, but you can choose, or your office can choose, whether to make all of that text horizontal, like these two are, or whether to make most of that text vertical, like these two are. Whichever way you go, horizontal or vertical, these blocks down at the bottom, the management block, the sheet title, and the sheet number, have to remain horizontal text no matter what the rest of the title block is doing. And that serves us well if we're working for a subcontractor and we're doing bidding and we're going through hundreds of sheets and drawing after drawing. If this is always written in a consistent format, it's going to save us a lot of time, and it might save us only a second or a fraction of a second on this particular sheet, but if we're doing hundreds of those fractions of seconds are going to add up. So we always make this bottom stuff horizontal no matter what. There's no standard about how big a margin you have to put around the outside of the border. It's very common in bigger drawing sets, C size and D size drawings. You know, the 24 by 36 is a D size sheet. It's very common to leave an extra wide margin on the left side, and that's because in an office or maybe down at the Builders Exchange, it is common to put a piece of paper folded up over the edge of the stack of drawings and then staple it. So that's how you bind those drawings together. And if you have an extra blank space over here, then you know you're not going to be covering up any important drawing information with your binding. B-size sheets do not typically get bound that way, so they just have an even margin all the way around. So those are the title block standards. You're going to find a lot of variation out there. Every office does things a little bit differently, and yeah, we're supposed to follow the standard, but many people vary all over the place. So I'll just show you a few examples. This one is from an architecture firm locally, Roberts and Sherwood Architects. They do a lot of work for LCC. I think they did the Eugene Public Library and the downtown LCC campus buildings. They do a lot of work, a lot of commercial work. So here is their title block, which they used for the renovation of Building 15 on the LCC campus. And you can notice, oh, well, the sheet title is not in the place we expect to see it, and this management block down here is supposed to be horizontal, but they turned it vertically. Oh, well. Oh, and the place where they're going to put their architect stamp, their license stamp, is down here below their company name, not quite in the same spot we might expect to see it. This is the general index page for this project, by the way, so you'll notice I'm veering off topic a minute. You'll notice that they list what firms are on the design team. Then here's an index of what drawing numbers are in this drawing set. They might list some abbreviations. This project was so small it didn't need them, but that can be useful for the contractor. And then over here is a legend, just making double sure everybody knows what those symbols are about. So that's Roberts and Sherwood. Here's Systems West. They are Systems West Engineering. They are a mechanical engineering firm, and in the field of architecture, mechanical means heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, that sort of thing. They do almost all the mechanical work for the LCC campus. So here is a drawing set that they did for modifying the central plant right here in Building 12 in the west end of the building, heating and cooling, and then they built a chiller building right here between Building 15 and 12. So this is their drawing set for that modification thing. And you can see their format is a little different from the standard too. This is a title block from the facilities office. This one was developed from back when I worked there. It's a really non-standard, but that's okay. It's for in-house use and it's fine. Still, you see that the title block information is along the right edge. And then this one is a simplified, super simple title block that I put together for a CAD class I was teaching in the architecture program at the U of O. You can see there's no room for like an architect stamp here because we didn't need one, so I left that out. And I just made all of this real simplified. Works fine. It's another example of how there's a lot of variation out there. But the main theme is along the vertical right edge of the sheet. That's where stuff has to go.